Good afternoon, everybody. Hey, it's Town Media Director Steve Rogan here, and this is Tyngsborough TV Live. I've got a very special edition of today's broadcast for you. We have Selectman Reault, who has agreed to come on the show today. We're going to do a Q&A discussing the Tyngsborough Country Club and the special town meeting that's coming up and all the details around it. I want to invite everybody who's watching, so whether you're watching on Comcast 8, Verizon 29, Facebook here on our town pages or on any of the pages that you happen to find our broadcast on YouTube as well. If you guys are on YouTube or Facebook, feel free to ask questions. And don't forget, you can watch, like I said, Comcast 8, Verizon 29 at tyngsboroughma.gov. If you have questions, you want to send them in through email, you can email them to sbrogan@tyngsboroughma.gov. Or, like I said, just use Facebook and YouTube, probably be the easiest things. Now, again, as I mentioned, we're going to discuss the golf course. Tyngsborough Country Club, this has been a very divisive issue. Anybody who is on the comment sections, if you want to get your question asked, I am going to ask you to remain respectful because we're going to have a very high-level, easygoing discussion about the country club. It's been very heated, so I just want to make sure that everybody's fully aware of this before we get started this. I don't want any fighting in the comment sections. I'm not going to respond to you if you're being snarky or asking questions that aren't appropriate, let's say. So let's just keep that in mind. I think you guys are going to be good, though. I'm sure you are. With that, I want to welcome Selectman Reault. Thank you, sir, for coming on today.
Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome. All right, appreciate you coming on. So I know it's been tough. I know I was even surprised you wanted to do this, but so that's why I kind of wanted.
Have you known me to run from anything?
No, this is true. You are right.
Okay.
He is very right. He is not one person to run away from anything, including the comment sections on Facebook and other social media avenues. So, like I said, we're going to go through the FAQs that have been posted on the website. If you want to get any of this information, you can go to tyngsboroughma.gov, and you can find all of the information available there from for the FAQs. There's a ton of info there. Now, with this show, I'm just asking questions. I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm going to let Selectman Reault discuss that, or sell it to you, I guess. I'm going to play kind of devil's advocate a little bit. If anybody was watching in the comment sections, feel free to ask the tough questions as well. And if it's a good question, then we'll ask it. If it's something we haven't already addressed, so. To start off, let's kind of round this out just from the beginning. So what happened at the previous town meeting with the vote? How much did we need in terms of votes to get this to actually pass?
Sure. As you know, Steve, we're going into our fourth vote. This action, when you purchased a property, this property was protected under 61B, which means that if the property sells, the town has a first right to purchase it.
Okay.
So what we did was back last fall, we had a meeting at special town meeting to say, okay, is this something the town wants to go forward with? And do you want to authorize the Board of Selectmen to negotiate a purchase and sales agreement?
Okay.
So at that meeting, I would say 80 to 85% approved of moving forward.
Okay.
So we did that. And then that is the next step is a required ballot vote. And that ballot vote, as time went on, people had a lot of questions. There was certain concerns, and it passed at the ballot by 40 votes. It should have been done at that point. However, we learned that we had hired new town council because Charles Reault retired. And just before, probably about a month before we were going into the ballot vote in May, the town council told us that the initial vote that we took at special town meeting was only good for 90 days.
Okay.
So we had to go back and do another vote, and we needed, as you would a zoning change, you need 66% approval. At the annual town meeting, it was approved by 58%, so we fell short of that goal.
So we missed by 2%, right? Or excuse me, 8%.
Sure. Yeah. And so, and I think it was,
I have the numbers here. It was
I don't know.
217 to 154.
Right, and I think we needed another 25 votes.
31, yeah.
31 votes. That's okay. So, so then it didn't pass. A couple months go by. The owners gave me a call and said, "Is the town out? Should we be talking to developers?" And I said, "Well, we've really tied up your property for a year. Do you want us to be out?" If they go the developer route, it would probably take them 2 to 3 years to even get all the approvals until they finally sold the land to developers who would build houses. So They were willing to drop the price because that was one of the things that they heard people complaining about. So they dropped the price, which we had negotiated at, it was at 3.8 million, which was 3.6 million for the land and 200,000 for all the equipment they have, between equipment to run the golf course and pumps to pump the irrigation system and golf carts and everything that they had that they were willing to sell to us for 200,000. So since then, they, when I talked to them, I said, "Do you still want the town to be in, and do you want to bring this back for another vote?" There's a procedure there. It's no longer, if you bring a vote back, it's in our town bylaws that if you bring a vote back in less than a year, it now requires 75% approval.
Okay.
So,
which is where we're at now.
That's where we're at now. So the owners agreed to drop the price by 500,000.
Okay.
I think a lot of it was that they want to retire now. They don't want to wait 2 or 3 years. And so we thought, and I was approached by an awful lot of people that were very disappointed. Well, we saw by, the majority of the people there at town meeting did want it. So we decided, okay, we're going to bring this back for one more vote. I know the other night the finance committee voted 5-0 to support the purchase of the golf course, which in the previous meeting that we had, they voted 4-1 to not support buying the project. So by the
that's a big flip.
It is a big flip right there.
Right.
So, and that tells me that a lot of people that were complaining about the price say, okay, now at 3.1 plus 200,000 more for the equipment, that's reasonable. Now, and so again, but there's still people that feel that price is still too high. I don't agree. And here's my thought on appraisals. I've always wondered how we should appraise this, because the town is interested in preserving open space. Developments, single-family home developments, cost your town money. So any time if you put a 30-house subdevelopment in this case 35 or 37 homes, or whatever it would be, when you bring in your tax revenue, there's more expenses than there is revenue.
Right.
So if you don't buy that course, it's going to end up costing your town. People will complain that their roads are not being paved. So why would you want to add more roads to the town?
That's a good point.
And so there's a lot of pluses. There's other large parcels in that area that it could, if all those parcels were to be developed, you'd probably be looking at 100 to 150 homes. So when you have a chance to control what happens on that property, that property is made up of basically 4 different parcels.
Okay.
One of them is wide open. It's 8 acres and could be used for multiple things.
Is that the part closest to the boulevard, that section, or is this back?
It's the parcel that it butts the boulevard and Sherburne Ave.
Okay.
And as 2 of the parcels do, but it's the one that used to be the 10th, 11th, and 12th hole. From the boulevard, it's a little higher, and there's water in front of it.
Okay.
And but there's so much potential for that lot. We've discussed multiple things that we could do with it, from public safety building to another field, a recreational field. It could be in the private sector. It could be a restaurant that we could lease the land out to, or a banquet facility and a restaurant, or an ice cream stand. We don't know, but if we do control the land, these are decisions that we can make in the future. Now, some people say, hey, we need a plan. It has to be a specific plan. The problem with making a specific plan is that now you're backing yourself into a corner, and if you change your mind and a better opportunity comes down the road, you say, well, we promised people we're doing this. And that's not fair. So, I think it's best if we did buy the land, to see what would develop, see what opportunities would come down the road, and see what ways the town could benefit. Ultimately, right now, it's how do we pay for it, and what are we proposing? So there's different proposals on how we pay for it. One of them, the one that I support, and I think other selectmen and selectwomen support, is to, if we purchase it at 3.3, is to somehow only do a debt exclusion with 2.3 and $1 million with other financing. That other financing could be a combination of a grant that we look very good for. That's what they give this grant money to certain projects.
Okay.
We could match that money with CPC, and we could also use money from our stabilization fund or our certified free cash that'll come up this fall. In that certified free cash number this year is that money that we recovered that was stolen from the tax collector's office.
Okay.
So we can't use that money until it's certified free cash, and that will happen October, November. Usually that's when it happens.
Okay.
Additionally, the water department is proposing to buy some land, but it's not an easy purchase from the town because there's 2 parcels there. One of them we used CPC money, so that money would have to be returned to the CPC.
Okay.
But let's say that did happen. There's agricultural restrictions that need to be ironed out. But if it did happen, and we can't promise that it will, but if it did, we could take that money back from that money would go to CPC. Then we could apply to the CPC to maybe use that money to purchase a golf course, which would again bring the cost to the taxpayers, down.
Okay.
But with the first proposal that I just talked about, which would be probably around in the $1 million range. Now, if we did a debt exclusion and we financed it over 30 years, we're looking at probably an impact of $30, $35 to the average homeowner tax bill. And I still will contend that the town will save money because a development will cost us money.
Right,
So how are we going to pay for that?
So let me quickly say something to your point.
Sure.
I've been doing some research, and on the state's website, Massachusetts State website, you can actually find what every town spends per pupil in their school system, and we're at, for one student, 14,000. I think it was 14,188 and change. It's a substantial amount of money. Now you factor in the average house is, say, $300,000. We'll use that. That brings in about $6,000 or so a year in taxes. Do the math. I mean, you're underwater immediately if they have one child in that household. So kind of interesting.
I serve. This is my 10th year on the Board of Selectmen, and my first year, I was appointed by my board members to represent Tyngsborough in the regional planning, Middlesex, Northern Middlesex Council of Governments, and we have a lot of those studies on roads, on housing, on our general population.
Right.
And with those studies tells us that in single-family homes, we average 1.5 students. Now, I think your assessment on a home of 300,000 for new construction is probably very low.
It's low, yes.
Yeah. And so I would say it'd be more than that. But I would say, 400 to 450 range houses sell pretty quickly in Tyngsborough.
Yeah, that's about the median, I believe, is 423 or something.
But
yeah.
And your figure that you said of 14,000, were you looking at the overall or just the public school figure?
So that was the public school figure, and then that's just divided by, it's the total budget divided by the amount of students that are actually in the school. So
yeah, and then we have other costs to education, out of school districts. We have the vocational school, and we have the charter school, which end up being more than that. So. Those numbers, I've looked at them so many times, and I tell people, if you look at everything that we spend in education in Tyngsborough through our budget of $40 million, about 70%. If you include, everything that we have to pay for employees, for health insurance, for our bonds to go pay for the schools, if you look at that, the town of Tyngsborough is spending in the 70% range. Of our tax dollars are going to education. So, it's very important. You have in your town, what you provide for education is going to be a driving factor in how much your house is worth.
Mm-hmm. So, at least on this note, it seems like the hit that a resident would take in terms of what it would cost to buy the country club versus what they might see years down the road when all of these students, so we'll just say 37 houses are what's going to go on there. You know, the average house is about 2 people per household, so figure at least 1 kid per house, right? That's 14,000 and change roughly per household just for one child to educate. You end up underwater later on down the road, where it may seem like a good idea in the beginning. You get the initial permit fees and all that stuff. Later on down the road, it adds up and ends up costing the town more money than what it would have been if you just bought the property and held it in open space.
Sure.
Correct?
That is correct. The other cost that you have is you have to trash collection.
Mm-hmm. That's
you
true,
have
yeah, right.
you have plowing.
Mm-hmm.
You have maintenance because we clean our yards, we put it out to the curb. The highway department has to come by and pick that up.
Mm-hmm.
So there's costs involved in that.
Mm-hmm.
And again, people are saying, "Hey, the roads are more important. Our roads are in disrepair," and I agree. And we've been working on that. I've been on the Board of Selectmen for 10 years, and I would love to have a conversation with anybody about what we do for roads. But quickly,
Mm-hmm.
I'll say that in the past, we only put in what we received in Chapter 90 funding,
Mm-hmm.
which was, let's say, basically in the $400,000 range. You can't pave a lot of roads with
Doesn't go far,
$400,000.
right? Yeah.
So I think it was 3-4 years ago that we, Selectman Jackson at the time, proposed a $1.6 million override. The town passed that override,
Mm-hmm.
and we used that $1.6 million in 2 years because we only had 3 years to do it. So we upped what we were spending on roads by $800,000 a year. Just to make an initial impact, and that was Sherburne Ave, Island Path, and a few others that we did, and so now this year, we've got a Mass Works grant for $2.5 million.
Mm-hmm. That's huge.
That was big money, and that's project is being completed now at Flint's Corner.
Mm-hmm.
We did some creative things. Last year we put $50,000 into the budget. We increased that by another $100,000 this year, so now it's a total of $150,000.
Mm-hmm.
We never budgeted money for our roads out of our general fund.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're doing that, and our goal is to increase that by $100,000 a year, so that if we get $400,000 to $500,000 from Chapter 90, maybe we can spend $1 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to work up to that, and we're responsibly doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't want to get off the topic of the golf course, but people say, well, when they complain about the roads, they say, well, people are more concerned about buying a golf course, and they make a joke out of it.
Mm.
But it's like, if you really want to have a serious conversation, I'll tell you what we're doing on the roads. And this year, we're paving $2 million in 1 year, where
Right.
we normally do $400,000, and you're going to see a lot of that in the next couple of the next couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
Those projects are being finalized now. They're bringing in the equipment to do it.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, we're also tearing up Middlesex Road for a sewer line extension, but then that'll be paid over after that project's complete. So there's a lot of work being done. We've recognized the problem with the roads. It's being worked on, and I'm proud of what we accomplished. It's very easy to say, oh, this road's bad, that road's bad. I know. I drive up my road every day, and mine's one of the worst. But it is, it's just what we have to deal with.
Well, it's good to know you're working on it, and you're right, to your point, there actually are 4 big roads, major roads, that are getting paved this year, and then there's a plan for another 4 next year already. So,
well, I'll give you
clearly
some.
It's been working.
I'll give you some recent information. We put the roads out to bid, and we had $2 million to spend, and we expected the bids to come in at $2 million. They came in at 1.3. So now
Wow.
it just happens to be that
Excellent.
that the cost of the hot top is lower. We had competitive bids. So now, instead of doing what we thought we could do for $2 million, we're now going to be doing additional roads this year because we have an additional $700,000 to spend.
Excellent. So now let's bring this back to the golf course, and I kind of want to step forward a little bit. So let's say town meeting's happened and town meeting passes this thing by I won't call it luck, but just by enough people showing up, it passes and the golf course gets purchased. What happens next? What's the next step?
So the next step would be to finalize a purchase and sale agreement with the owners. Legally put everything on paper and have your attorneys and do the title searches and then we've already applied for grants in case we do buy the land.
Okay.
So we're trying to stay a step ahead of that. And then we work on every funding possibility we can to lower the cost to the taxpayer.
Okay. So right, and you had mentioned that you're already working on about $1 million in funds that would help purchase it. So that would bring that 3.3 down to 2.3, less hit to the taxpayers. Into the bills, which is a good
and we
thing,
can continue to
right?
do things to anything that we could bring in to reduce that 2.3 spending and take it off the tax bill. We would do it.
Okay.
The other thing is then we would put a request for proposals out to golf course management companies, which we've already done.
Okay. Has there been any interest in that so far?
We've had several conversations with different companies.
Okay.
So we feel that we can get a competitive bid, as other towns have done, and bring a golf course management company to come in and manage the course at no cost to the town.
Okay.
So then you would try to enter into an agreement where if revenues exceeded a certain amount, then the town could get some money back for that.
Okay.
We could put in,
Like a royalty or a
Well, yeah, but it would be nice to, even if it was a nominal amount of money, $25,000-$50,000, that you could use to do the maintenance in the buildings and keep all the buildings on the property maintained.
Okay.
So that would be the goal there.
Okay. So on that note, that brings up a question I've had in mind is, I've played at Tyngsborough Country Club. The facility isn't exactly in the most upkept standards, I guess. Let's say
it's a clubhouse,
right? It's a clubhouse. The town buys it. Now suddenly the building might need replacement or roof or furnaces, things like that. Equipment needs upkeep and maintenance or replacement potentially, which can be very expensive. Is there a plan or at least a thought in mind in terms of what will happen if that stuff does occur?
Well, probably be part of the
from?
negotiations with the management company.
Yep.
Of using part of that revenue that they bring in.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, if we purchase the golf carts bring in revenue.
Mm-hmm.
If we own those golf carts, and then we may expect some revenue for that, and that could go towards the maintenance costs. But that would all be negotiated in the contract if we did own the country club, and we would negotiate that in with the management companies.
Okay. Now, what about like some of the smaller things, like who pays the utilities on the facility, the water bill, that kind of stuff? Is that a town fee
all negotiated? So it's on well water.
Okay.
There, it's on a private septic system.
Okay.
So there's no municipal cost there. They also have a permit with the state and federal permit to pump water from the river onto their irrigation system.
Okay.
But Steve, one of the things that people say is, why do we want to run it as a golf course? Why don't we?
It's a good question. Yeah.
But so I would say that if you could bring a company in, they're going to mow the grass, they're going to maintain it, and if we don't have that company, no one's going to mow the grass because we're not sending the highway department out there to do it.
They already have enough to do. Yeah.
And why would you just want it to be overgrown?
Right.
If it can be, run as a recreational facility like it is now, and it can be no cost to the town, we should try that and try it for a year or two. There's other towns, Groton for one, that people will say, well, Groton did it and they lost money. One of the things that Groton did is they put in a pool, they put in tennis courts, they spent money there to make it a recreational facility. So they planned on losing money there.
Okay.
The Chelmsford tried to run it through their own town, and then went over to a management company, and it breaks even or makes a little bit of money.
Okay.
This business has been there for 90 years, and it's it's maintained. It's in excellent condition. It's
The course
not
itself
like,
is good. Yes.
yeah, and we've talked with the owners, and next Sunday, I have to verify with the owners on the time, but we're thinking next Sunday, the 2 days before the vote, to allow people to take a walk around the course. And we were trying to plan at 3 o'clock, but I'll have to confirm that with the owners if it's still available. I have to make sure they don't have a tournament or anything there. But usually Sundays afternoons are a quieter time. So we're hoping to be able to do that so people can go out and see the golf course.
Okay. What happens if the golf course business tanks? So I did some research. I was looking on websites like Forbes, and they have basically a track of golf as a whole in terms of golf course operations, and it's on an uptrend. It actually was up about it was $20 billion over the last 10 years, I believe. But what happens if that changes? So golf takes a turn for the worse. Suddenly the place is losing money. How long does this bleed until the town says, okay, no more golf, we're just going to turn it back into open space?
What can I ask you? What's your big expense in your household? Probably the same as mine.
The mortgage.
Yeah. Of course.
Right.
So if you have a management company that goes in there and they don't have a mortgage, there's your biggest cost, and that's probably what drives a lot of golf course businesses down.
Okay.
So why should the townspeople pay that money? Basically, because we're preventing development. And we're a small town. We're Tyngsborough. We're the smallest town around. Dunstable is smaller than us. But, Dunstable made a decision, years and years ago with a couple of thousand people in their town to remain small. They said, okay, we're not going to put infrastructure in. We're going to, have high acreage requirements to build houses. We're going to have a high tax rate. And that's how they've been able to keep their population low. I don't know of any other town in the area that really has done that. So, when I moved into town back in the let me try to think back in the mid '70s, we were a town of less than 5,000 people at that point. Now we're at 12. I really don't think that this town in the next 20 years is going to see more than 15,000 people. I look at the projections. I see what we have coming in, and I think that's probably where we'll be in 10, 15 years from now.
Okay.
But can it be 16 or 17,000? Yeah, if more developments go in, it could reach that number.
Okay. So your point's interesting. I actually hadn't thought of it in that term where they don't have to worry about a mortgage. That does help preserve the business, as you said. That's actually an interesting point. I hadn't factored that. How about resident use? Would it be allowed in some areas for people to walk their dogs, or the golf team even, to be able to use the course for free like they are now?
Sure. We haven't had those discussions and again, it's kind of putting the cart before the horse. But
True,
this is
right.
what we have talked about. We've talked about putting a committee together of residents and business owners and people that are interested. We have a golf pro that lives in town. We have a resident that worked at that golf course for a long period of time. We have a lot of people that could really add something to a committee to run that course. And that committee could get together and say, okay, we're going to work with the management company, and Tyngsborough golf team will play there. We won't charge Tyngsborough golf team to play there. However, we might make the players come in and help on weekends to help maintain the course, right?
Yeah, sure. Right.
Have some skin in the game,
Yep.
a little bit of sweat equity. We could do, who knows if the cross-country team, maybe they would want to put a course around there where they could run. There's other towns that the cross-country team runs on the golf courses. Maybe that's a nice possibility. There could be other community events there. The golf course of the 84 acres, it takes up about 40 acres. So there's other areas that we could tie into the Sherburne Ave nature trails,
Which is right behind it, right?
right,
Yep.
and continue
Show
a
that on the map.
walkway
Yep.
around that property. Yes, walk your dogs. Just enjoy the nature. I have a group of pictures of owls and eagles and turtles and everything in and around that property. Deer, that you see, and it's nice to see that wildlife.
Yeah.
because of the river. We have a lot of nesting areas for eagles. I'm sure most town residents have probably seen them at one point or another.
Yep. Yeah, they're right on the river. Actually, you can see them pretty easily.
We've talked about cross country skiing, because a lot of people say, "Well, I don't golf." There's 3 or 4 acres that are right on the river, and people say that's useless land. We didn't include that in the acreage, but we did include it in the sale. My thought was, well, you have half marathons that run by there. You have bike races. Wouldn't it be nice to cut in a little bit of a trail over there, so people could maybe pull in, if you're running a watering station, maybe a bike you pull off, and there might be some benches and picnic tables out there, so it sits high above the river to just enjoy that view. There's unlimited potential. We're a small community. We try to keep a community. We're building trying to bring activity to our town center. We're trying to do things community related. When you consider a purchase like this, a large consideration has to be, what added value to the community is this? And that's where the value comes in. And I just think it's a one-time opportunity. There's properties that we did not purchase in the past, and we've regretted it.
Right, the Marist property, that's
the
been
Marist
mentioned
Brothers
a ton
property,
of times.
And I'm not going to go over and over. Those things have been rehashed. We've had 4 meetings. We've had, I think we had 3 informational meetings on the first one. We had an informational meeting leading up to our vote on Tuesday. We're going to have another informational meeting this Thursday night at 7 o'clock at the Old Town Hall. So people can come in and ask specific questions. But I think I'm looking forward to a good turnout for this meeting. I think the community is talking about it, and if 75% of the people want this, then they're going to vote that way, and if they don't, they're not.
Okay.
I just I want to open everybody's eyes to all the questions, and my biggest one too is when people say, how can we afford this? Our taxes are going high. I understand that our tax bills went out there, and their estimated tax bills, some people said that their tax bill went up 4% or even more. And I honestly, we've got some questions into that too, because our taxes go up 2.5% on average. If somebody's tax bill goes up 4%, that means somebody else's tax bill has to go down. And so how is that working? I know we did some reevaluations this year, and some of those evaluations are not complete. So we have to see what the final outcome is. And sometimes you'll get an estimated tax bill for the first 3 quarters, and then the fourth quarter it's a lower bill. I don't know if that's the case or not, but we'll find out.
Okay. So now let's flip it the other way. We go to town meeting, it gets voted down. Does this come back again?
Could it? Yes. Do I think it would? No, I don't think it would.
Okay.
So if and I'm just going to say, the owners at any time have the ability to come in and pay $40,000, keep it the use the same for a year, and then the town does not have the first right anymore. So they can pull it out of 61B at a cost of paying back 5 years of taxes. And I think the tax benefit is $8,000 a year. So they would pay back $40,000, and they could sell it to anybody. And this is where sometimes people say, well, it's only worth $38,000 a lot. Well, I know a lot of builders in town that are paying $150,000 for a house and tearing it down and building a new house. Now, when you can tear down an existing house that's already on a road, we call those Form A lots. They don't need to build a road. They already have a road. They have frontage on the road, and they can build on there. So granted, all of these lots on Tyngsborough Country Club, if it was residential lots, not all of them would be on the road, but some of them would be. So that's why I say an appraisal is very and appraisals here have come out lower, and people say we should be paying more than the appraised price. Well, a developer will pay more than the appraised price. I guarantee you that. And you know, I've heard the number $1 million, $2 million, $2.5 million. If anybody went out there and bought that property for $1 million, they would be very happy because they could turn around and sell the next day for $2 million and make $1 million. If you bought that property for $2 million, I would say the same thing. You probably stand a very good chance of turning around and selling that property for $3 million. And so we want to be fair to the towns, the taxpayers, and we want to be fair to the business owners who have run the business there for 90 years.
Same family, right? For the last.
It's the same family.
Okay.
It was you know, the Spindell family, and that started it and built the golf course 90 years ago, and it's continued. But now, there's no one in the family that's going to stay there and run the golf course. They work the golf course themselves. You know, they run the clubhouse. They run the greenskeeper. You know, is Glenn, and he's out there at, I don't know. I go by there at 5 o'clock in the morning, and he's out there. Or 4 o'clock in the morning. You know, they're out there working hard, and maintaining a really nice business that this town has enjoyed for 90 years. And I just want to see, you know, the next generations be able to enjoy the same thing with an added value. What we can do on that property with, you know, again, if we have a 12-person committee, I think they could come up with a lot of good ideas. It's like we're doing in the town center now. With that, you know, we're really, I think we've gone a long way in the last 5 or 6 years in building our community and presenting things like the Festival of Trees, the block party that's coming up in August, very popular, very well attended, both events.
It did huge last year. It's going to be even bigger.
You know, it would be nice to be able to see, you know, regional cross-country meet, a regional golf tournament, high school golf tournament, maybe cross-country skiing events. Who knows? I mean, but we can do whatever we want. But if we don't buy it, we're missing that one opportunity.